The rain hammered against Emma's umbrella as she stood on the sidewalk, watching the red taillights of her ex-boyfriend's car disappear into the Seattle night. And she felt nothing except relief that she had finally ended something that had been dying for months. She adjusted her grip on the umbrella handle and started walking toward the coffee shop 2 blocks away, needing warmth and something hot to drink before heading back to her apartment. The breakup had been necessary, but that did not make standing in the rain any more pleasant. Marcus had been nice enough, but their relationship had felt like wearing shoes that almost fit. Close, but not quite right. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed as she entered, and the warmth immediately fogged her glasses. She pulled them off, wiping them with the edge of her sweater while squinting at the menu board she had memorized months ago anyway. The usual Emma called Sophia from behind the counter. "Please," Emma said, finally getting her glasses clear enough to see. "And maybe one of those chocolate croissants." "Rough night. Just ended things with Marcus." Sophia winced sympathetically. "I will add an extra shot to your latte." Emma smiled and moved to the pickup counter, noticing the shop was quieter than usual for a Thursday evening. Only a handful of people occupied the scattered tables, most with laptops open or books spread before them. She had always loved this place precisely because it never tried too hard. The walls were painted a simple cream color, the furniture mismatched in a way that felt authentic rather than designed, and the coffee was exceptional. "Emma." A deep voice said her name like a question. She turned to find a man standing near the condiment station, tall with dark hair that looked like he had run his hands through it several times. He wore jeans and a simple gray Henley, and his brown eyes held a mixture of recognition and uncertainty. "Yes," she said, trying to place him. "I thought that was you. We met at the hospital fundraiser last month. I'm Julian." The memory clicked into place. The pediatric ward benefit where she had volunteered to help with registration. He had been one of the donors, though they had only spoken briefly when he checked in. She remembered thinking he seemed different from the other wealthy attendees, less interested in being seen and more focused on the actual cause. "Right, of course. You donated that incredible amount for the new equipment." He shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. "It was for a good cause." "Emma, your latte," Sophia called out. "It was nice seeing you again," Emma said politely, moving to grab her drink. "Are you sitting here for a bit?" Julian asked. "I mean, if you are not in a hurry, maybe we could talk." "I actually wanted to ask you something about the volunteer program at the hospital." Emma hesitated. She had planned to take her coffee home and spend the evening with a book and her cat, but something about his expression seemed genuine. No artifice, no smooth lines. Just a straightforward question. "Sure," she said. "Let me grab my croissant." They settled at a table by the window, rain still streaking down the glass in steady rivulets. Julian had a simple black coffee in front of him, and she noticed his hands as he wrapped them around the cup. Strong hands with a thin scar across his right knuckles. "So what did you want to know about the volunteer program?" Emma asked, breaking off a piece of her croissant. "Actually," Julian said, a smile tugging at his mouth, "I might have used that as an excuse. I remembered you from the fundraiser, and when I saw you come in, I thought I would say hello. I hope that is not too forward." Emma felt something flutter in her chest, but she pushed it down firmly. She had just ended a relationship 20 minutes ago. This was not the time to feel anything about a handsome stranger with kind eyes. "It is a little forward," she said, but she smiled to take the edge off the words. "But I appreciate the honesty." "I moved to Seattle about 6 months ago," Julian explained. "Still getting to know the city, meeting people. It is harder than I expected, making real connections as an adult." "Where did you move from?" "Boston. I grew up there, built my business there, but I needed a change. What kind of business? Manufacturing. We make medical equipment, actually. That is why I was interested in the hospital fundraiser. It is what I know, what I care about. Emma took a sip of her latte, studying him. He did not have the usual swagger she associated with successful businessmen. No expensive watch glinting on his wrist, no name-dropping or peacocking. Just a guy drinking coffee and talking about his work with quiet passion. That must be fulfilling, she said. Making things that help people. It is. What do you do? I am a physical therapist. I work at a clinic downtown, mostly with people recovering from injuries or surgery. So we are both in the business of helping people heal. I guess we are. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily from work to Seattle to books to the ridiculous traffic patterns downtown. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, and the knot of tension she had been carrying since deciding to end things with Marcus began to loosen. When she finally glanced at her phone, she was startled to see how late it had gotten. I should head home, she said reluctantly. Can I walk you? Julian offered, or drive you? My car is just around the corner. I live close enough to walk, but thank you. They stood, and Julian held the door open as they stepped back into the rain. It had softened to a drizzle, the kind of mist that Seattle specialized in. Emma, Julian said as they paused on the sidewalk. I would really like to see you again. Can I take you to dinner sometime? The flutter returned to her chest, stronger this time. Emma looked at him, at the hope in his eyes, and felt something shift inside her. But underneath that flutter was fear. She had just gotten out of a relationship. Before Marcus, there had been David, and before David, a string of almosts and not quites that had left her wondering if she was the problem. Julian, I just got out of a relationship. Like, literally 20 minutes before I walked into that coffee shop. His expression shifted, understanding replacing hope. I see. You seem really nice. Tonight was really nice, but I am not in a place where I can start something new. I need time to figure out what I want, who I am when I am not trying to make a relationship work. Julian nodded slowly. I understand that. I respect that. Thank you, Emma said, meaning it. Can I ask you something, though? Sure. How long do you think you will need? I know that is probably an impossible question, but I am trying to understand if you are saying no because you are not interested, or if you are saying not right now. Emma took a breath, feeling the mist settle on her face. I do not know. Honestly, I do not know. A few months, maybe longer. Julian smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Then I will wait, however long it takes. You do not even know me. I know enough to know I want to know more, and I know that you deserve time to heal and figure things out, so I will wait. That is crazy, Emma said, but she was smiling too. Maybe, but I have learned that the things worth having are worth waiting for. He pulled out his phone. Can I at least have your number, not to pressure you or push for dates, just to stay in touch as friends? And when you are ready, if you are ready, you can let me know. Emma hesitated, then recited her number. This was probably a terrible idea, but something about Julian made her want to take the risk. Good night, Emma, he said after saving her contact. Good night, Julian. She walked home through the misty rain, her mind spinning. When she let herself into her apartment, her cat Pepper immediately wound around her ankles, meowing indignantly about the late dinner. I know, Emma said, scooping food into the bowl. I met someone, Pep. And I sent him away because I am supposed to be figuring myself out. Pepper ignored her in favor of the food. Emma changed into pajamas and curled up on her couch, but she could not focus on her book. Her phone sat on the coffee table, silent. Julian had said he would wait, but what did that even mean? People said things all the time. Pretty words that evaporated in the light of day. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Julian. I just wanted to say thank you for the coffee and conversation. No need to respond. Sleep well. Emma stared at the message for a long moment, then saved his contact and turned off her phone. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and deliberate solitude. Emma threw herself into her patients, finding satisfaction in helping Mrs. Chen regain mobility after her hip replacement and watching Marcus, a teenager not to be confused with her ex, finally walk without crutches after a skiing accident. Julian texted occasionally, never pushing, never asking her out, just small messages. A photo of a sunset over Puget Sound with the caption, "Seattle is growing on me." A link to an article about new developments in physical therapy equipment. A simple hope you are having a good week. Emma responded sparingly at first, feeling guilty for encouraging him when she had no idea when or if she would be ready. But his messages never demanded anything from her. They were just small windows into his life, offered without expectation. 3 weeks after their coffee shop meeting, Emma met her best friend Rachel for lunch at a Mediterranean place near the waterfront. "So let me get this straight," Rachel said, stabbing a falafel with her fork. "A hot, successful, genuinely nice guy wants to take you out, and you said no." "I said not yet," Emma corrected. "There is a difference. You have been saying you need time to yourself for years. After David, you said you needed 6 months alone, and then you started dating Marcus after like 3 weeks. That is exactly my point. I keep jumping from one relationship to another without figuring out why they keep not working." Rachel sighed. "Okay, fair. But have you considered that maybe they were not working because they were not the right people, not because you are broken or missing something?" "I do not think I am broken. You kind of do, though. You keep talking about figuring yourself out like you are a puzzle with missing pieces. Maybe you are already whole and you just need to find someone who fits with who you already are." Emma pushed her salad around her plate. "Maybe. This Julian guy sounds different. I barely know him. But you want to, I can tell." Emma did not deny it. That was the problem. She did want to know Julian. She wanted to have more conversations that lasted hours, wanted to understand the story behind the scar on his knuckles, wanted to see if the flutter in her chest was real or just another false start. But wanting something and being ready for it were different things. That night, Julian texted her a photo of a dog wearing a tiny raincoat. "Saw this at the park and thought of you. Not sure why. Maybe you seem like a person who would appreciate a well-dressed dog." Emma laughed out loud, startling Pepper from his perch on the windowsill. She typed back, "I do appreciate a well-dressed dog. Extra points if the raincoat has a hood." It did have a hood. I should have gotten a better picture. The photo is perfect. A pause then, "How are you doing? And you can tell me to back off if these texts are too much." Emma sat with the question. How was she doing? She was okay. Work was good. She had been reading more, sleeping better. She had not cried over Marcus once, which confirmed that ending things had been the right choice. But she also felt suspended somehow, like she was waiting for something without knowing what it was. "I am doing okay," she typed. "And the texts are not too much. They make me smile." Good. That was the goal. Spring crept into Seattle slowly, the rain softening into sunshine that felt like a reward. Emma started running again, something she had abandoned during the last months with Marcus. The rhythm of her feet on the pavement helped clear her mind. 2 months after meeting Julian, she found herself thinking about him more often, wondering what he was doing, if he was still waiting, if she was being unfair by keeping him in limbo. She was stretching after a run at Green Lake when her phone rang. Julian's name flashed on the screen. "Hello." She answered, slightly breathless. "Emma, hi, is this a bad time?" "No, I just finished a run. What is up?" I am calling to tell you something, and I want to be upfront about it because I said I would wait, and I meant it, but I also do not want you to hear this from someone else and think I was hiding it." Emma's stomach tightened. "Okay." "I got invited to speak at a medical equipment conference here in Seattle next month. It is a pretty big deal, and there is going to be some media coverage. Local news, some industry publications. My company is going to come up, and the fact that I sold my previous company a few years ago for a significant amount of money might be mentioned." "Okay," Emma said slowly, not understanding why he sounded so serious. "I am a millionaire, Emma. Actually, I am worth considerably more than that, but I hate even saying it because it is not who I am. It is just money I made from building something successful. But I know how it can look, and I know some people hear that and make assumptions. I just wanted you to hear it from me first." Emma sat down on a bench, processing this information. She had known Julian was successful. He had donated a substantial amount to the hospital, but somehow she had not connected the dots to exactly how wealthy he might be. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because I do not want you to think I was hiding it. And because if you see something about it and decide you do not want to deal with that aspect of my life, I would understand. It comes with complications. Attention, people making assumptions, gold diggers." He said the last word with distaste. "I just want to be honest with you, Julian. I appreciate you telling me, but I do not care about your money." "I know you do not. That is part of why I am still waiting." Emma smiled. "You are really still waiting. I told you I would. It has been 2 months, I am aware." "What if I need another 2 months? Or 6? Then I will wait 6 months. Emma, I am not going anywhere." Something cracked open in Emma's chest. Not fear this time, but something warmer, something that felt like possibility. "What if I said I might be ready to try dinner?" she said softly. "Just dinner, no promises." The silence on the other end lasted just a heartbeat too long. Then Julian's voice came through, warm and careful. "I would say I know a place with incredible pasta and I would pick you up at 7 on Friday if that works for you." "That works for me." "Emma." "Yes. Thank you for giving this a chance." After they hung up, Emma sat on the bench watching runners circle the lake, feeling terrified and excited in equal measure. Rachel was right. She had been treating herself like a broken thing that needed fixing. But maybe she was not broken. Maybe she had just been waiting for someone worth the risk. Friday arrived with perfect spring weather, the kind of evening where the light turned golden and the air smelled like cherry blossoms. Emma changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress that made her feel confident without trying too hard. Julian arrived exactly at 7, holding a small bouquet of tulips. "These are beautiful," Emma said, surprised by the gesture. "You mentioned you liked them." "In one of our texts last month." She had mentioned it, in passing, barely a sentence in a longer conversation. The fact that he had remembered made her chest feel tight in the best way. His car was nice but not ostentatious. A clean sedan that smelled like leather and pine. He opened her door before getting in himself, and Emma felt like she had stepped into a different era, one where gestures like this still mattered. The restaurant was in Ballard, a small Italian place that clearly catered to locals rather than tourists. The owner greeted Julian by name and led them to a quiet table in the corner. "You come here often?" Emma asked as they settled in. "Often enough. The chef is from Naples, and her carbonara is the closest I have found to the real thing outside of Italy." "You have been to Italy?" "A few times. For work mostly, but I always try to stay a few extra days to actually see the places I visit." They ordered wine and pasta, and the conversation flowed as easily as it had that first night in the coffee shop. But there was something different now. An awareness, a charge in the air between them. This was not just two people talking. This was a first date with all the weight and possibility that carried. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said as they shared tiramisu for dessert. "Anything." "Why did you really move to Seattle? You said you needed a change, but what were you changing from?" Julian set down his fork, considering the question. "I was engaged 3 years ago. Her name was Victoria. We had been together since college and everyone expected us to get married. I expected us to get married. What happened? I found out she was more interested in what I could provide than who I actually was. The money, the lifestyle, the status. When I caught her cheating with someone who could offer her more social connections, she did not even seem sorry, just annoyed that I was making a big deal out of it. I am so sorry." "It was the best thing that ever happened to me," Julian said, surprising her, "because it taught me to be more careful, to pay attention to why people want to be around me. It also taught me that I had been building a life that looked good on paper but felt empty. So I sold my first company, started a new one doing work I actually cared about, and moved somewhere no one knew me as Victoria's fiancé or the kid who built a company in his 20s. "Is that why you waited?" Emma asked. "When I said I was not ready, you understood because you had needed the same thing." "Partly. But also because when I talked to you that first night, you did not look at me like I was a wallet or a status symbol. You looked at me like I was just a person. Do you know how rare that is?" Emma reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You are just a person, Julian. A good person, but just a person." He turned his hand to lace his fingers through hers. "Best first date I have ever had. The night is not over yet. Even better." They walked along the waterfront after dinner, the lights from the city reflecting on the dark water. Julian draped his jacket over Emma's shoulders when she shivered, and they talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, worst jobs, childhood dreams. "I wanted to be a dancer," Emma admitted. "Ballet. I was obsessed from age 5 to 15. What happened? I grew 5 inches in one summer and my center of gravity went completely off. Plus I realized I actually did not love performing. I loved the movement, the way bodies could heal and strengthen through specific exercises. That is what led me to physical therapy." "So you still get to work with movement and bodies healing. You just found a different path." "Exactly." They stopped at a bench overlooking the water. Julian turned to face her, his expression serious. "Emma, I want to be clear about something. I know you said just dinner, no promises, and I will never push you for more than you are ready to give. But I need you to know that I am all in. This is not casual for me. I have waited 2 months because I was serious about wanting to know you, and nothing about tonight has changed that. If anything, I am more certain." Emma's heart hammered in her chest. Every instinct told her to pull back, to protect herself, to say something non-committal. But she was tired of being afraid. "I am terrified," she said honestly. "I have a track record of choosing the wrong people or self-sabotaging when things get good. I do not want to do that with you." "Then do not. Be scared, but be scared with me. Let me prove that this is different." "What if I hurt you? What if you do not?" Julian countered. "Emma, I can handle being hurt. What I cannot handle is walking away from something real because of what might happen." Emma looked at him, at the certainty in his eyes, and made a choice. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, a question. But then Julian's hand came up to cup her face, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like an answer. When they finally pulled apart, Emma was breathing hard. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, okay, let's do this. Let's be all in together." Julian's smile was bright enough to rival the city lights. "Best decision you have ever made. Confident, are you not, when it comes to us?" "Absolutely." The next few months unfolded like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. Julian integrated into her life seamlessly. meeting Rachel and her other friends, charming everyone with his genuine interest in their lives and his complete lack of pretension. He showed up at her apartment with groceries to cook dinner, perfectly content to spend Friday nights on her couch watching movies instead of going out to expensive restaurants. Emma met his business partner, a sharp woman named Linda who ran the operations side of the medical equipment company. She also met his younger sister Mara when she visited from Boston, and Emma immediately understood where Julian got his warmth and humor. "He talks about you constantly," Mara told Emma over brunch while Julian was in the bathroom. "It is disgusting and adorable." "I talk about him constantly too," Emma admitted. "Good. He deserves someone who sees him for who he is. Victoria really did a number on him. He seems pretty well adjusted to me. Now, yes. But for a while after that ended, he was so guarded, suspicious of everyone's motives. The fact that he opened up to you so quickly tells me everything I need to know." When Julian returned to the table, he looked between them suspiciously. "What did I miss?" "Nothing," they said in unison, then laughed. Work continued to go well for both of them. Emma took on additional training sessions at the clinic, teaching newer therapists about her techniques. Julian's company landed a major contract with a hospital network on the East Coast, which meant more travel than he wanted, but also the satisfaction of seeing his equipment help more people. They navigated the challenges of blending their lives with surprising ease. Emma learned to accept that sometimes Julian's work required last-minute trips or late-night calls with overseas partners. Julian learned that Emma needed space when she had particularly difficult days at the clinic, time to process before she could talk about it. 6 months into their relationship, Emma woke up in Julian's apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows. He was already awake, propped up on one elbow watching her. "Creepy," she mumbled, but she was smiling. "You snore." "I do not. Just little ones. It is cute." Emma stretched, feeling content in a way she had never experienced before. "I love you," she said, the words coming out naturally without thought or fear. Julian's expression softened. "I love you too. Have for a while now. Why did you not say anything?" "I was waiting for you to be ready to hear it." "I am ready," Emma said, pulling him down for a kiss. "I am so ready." The conference Julian had mentioned months ago finally arrived, and Emma accompanied him to the opening reception. She felt out of place at first, surrounded by people in expensive suits discussing profit margins and market share. But Julian kept her close, his hand a steady presence on the small of her back. "Julian, congratulations on the East Coast contract," a man in a gray suit said, approaching them with a practiced smile. "Thank you, Robert. This is my girlfriend, Emma." "Lovely to meet you," Robert said, his eyes sliding over her dismissively before returning to Julian. "I wanted to discuss the possibility of—" Emma let the business talk wash over her, observing the dynamics of this world Julian inhabited. He was respected here, that much was obvious. People sought him out, listened when he spoke. But she also noticed how he subtly steered conversations away from pure profit and toward impact, toward the patients who would benefit from better equipment. Later, after the reception, they collapsed on his couch with takeout Chinese food. "That was exhausting," Emma said. "How do you do that all the time?" "I do not, usually. That was a lot even for me." He opened a container of lo mein. "Did you hate it?" "No, it was interesting seeing you in that environment." "You are good at it, but I could tell part of you wanted to be anywhere else." "The business part is necessary to fund the work that actually matters. I make my peace with it." "That Robert guy was kind of awful," Julian laughed. "He is exactly awful. But he controls a purchasing budget that could help a lot of hospitals, so I smile and nod." Emma shifted to lean against him. "For what it is worth, I think what you do is incredible. Not the schmoozing part, but the actual work. The equipment you make helps people like my patients. That matters." "You matter," Julian said, kissing the top of her head. They fell into a comfortable silence, eating noodles and watching terrible reality TV. This, Emma thought, was what she had been waiting for all along. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but simple comfort with someone who knew her completely. A year after their coffee shop meeting, Julian took Emma back to the same place. She did not realize his plan until they were seated at the same table by the window. "You are so sentimental," she teased. "I prefer romantic." Sophia brought over their drinks without being asked, winking at Emma as she set down the latte. "So," Julian said, his voice suddenly serious. "A year ago I sat at this table and told you I would wait as long as it took, that I knew enough to know I wanted to know more. I remember I thought you were crazy. I probably was a little bit, but I was also right." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Emma, this year with you has been the best year of my life. You challenge me, support me, make me laugh, and see me for exactly who I am. I do not want to wait anymore." Emma's heart started racing as Julian slid off his chair and onto one knee. "I am not doing this here because it is a grand gesture or because I think you need the spectacle. I am doing it here because this is where it started. Where you were brave enough to be honest about not being ready, and where I was stubborn enough to promise to wait." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "Emma Catherine Torres, will you marry me?" Emma could not speak past the lump in her throat. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I need to hear you say it," Julian said gently, a smile playing at his lips. "Yes," Emma managed. "Yes, of course, yes." The ring was perfect. Simple, elegant, exactly what she would have chosen for herself. Julian slid it onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms. The handful of people in the coffee shop applauded, and Sophia was crying behind the counter. "I love you so much," Emma said against his chest. "I love you too. Thank you for being worth the wait. Thank you for waiting." They planned the wedding for the following spring, wanting enough time to do it right without dragging it out too long. Emma's mother flew in from Arizona to help, and she instantly adored Julian. "You finally found a good one," she told Emma while they looked at flower arrangements. "I did. He looks at you like you hung the moon." "I feel the same way about him." Her mother squeezed her hand. "That is how it should be. Equal, balanced, full of love." The wedding was held at a small venue on Bainbridge Island overlooking the water. They kept it intimate, just family and close friends. Emma wore a dress that made her feel beautiful without being ostentatious, and Julian cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Rachel officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. "I have known Emma for 15 years, she said during the ceremony, "and I have never seen her as happy as she has been this past year. Julian, you have my blessing and my warning. If you ever hurt her, I know where you live." Everyone laughed, including Julian, who nodded solemnly. "Understood." When it came time for vows, Emma's hands shook as she held the paper she had written and rewritten a dozen times. "Julian, a year and a half ago, I was standing in the rain convincing myself I was not ready for love. I thought I needed time alone, time to fix whatever was broken inside me. But you showed me that I was not broken. I just had not met the right person yet. You waited when you had no reason to believe I would ever be ready. You respected my boundaries while making it clear you were not going anywhere. You loved me before I knew how to love you back. I promised to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith in us was justified. I promised to be your partner, your best friend, your home. I love you completely." Julian wiped his eyes before starting his own vows. "Emma, that first night in the coffee shop, you could have brushed me off. You had every reason to. Instead, you gave me an hour of your time and your complete honesty. You told me you were not ready, and instead of feeling rejected, I felt hopeful, because you did not say no. You said not yet, and in that small distinction, I saw a future worth waiting for. You were right to make me wait. We both needed that time to build a foundation based on friendship and trust before adding the weight of forever. But now we are here, and I have never been more certain of anything. You are my person, Emma, my partner, my home, my heart. I promise to love you fiercely and gently, to give you space when you need it and hold you close when you do not, to build a life with you that honors both of us. I will never make you wait for my love because it is already yours. Always has been, always will be. There was not a dry eye in the venue. They honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 weeks eating incredible food and exploring small villages. Julian took her to his favorite spots in Rome and Florence. Then they ventured further south to the Amalfi Coast, where they did nothing but sit on the beach and drink wine. I could live here, Emma said, wiggling her toes in the sand. We could come back every year, Julian suggested. Make it our tradition. I love that idea. I love you. You are required to say that now. We are married. Julian laughed, pulling her closer. I was saying it long before we were married, and I will keep saying it long after. They returned to Seattle tanned and relaxed, ready to start their married life in earnest. Emma moved into Julian's apartment, which was bigger and had a better kitchen. They argued good-naturedly about furniture and decorating until they found a style that felt like both of them. Work continued for both of them, but they prioritized their relationship above all else. Weekly date nights, technology-free Sundays, and a shared commitment to never going to bed angry. 2 years into their marriage, Emma found herself feeling constantly tired. She assumed it was work stress, until Rachel pointed out that she had been tired for weeks and maybe should see a doctor. The pregnancy test was positive. Emma stared at the little plus sign for a full minute before her brain caught up with reality. She was pregnant. They had talked about wanting kids eventually, but had not actively been trying. This was a surprise, albeit a wonderful one. She called Julian at work, something she rarely did. "Everything okay?" he answered immediately, concern in his voice. "Everything is perfect. Can you come home?" "I am leaving right now." He made it home in record time, finding Emma sitting on the couch with Pepper purring in her lap. "What is going on?" he asked, sitting beside her. Emma handed him the pregnancy test. Julian looked at it, then at her, then back at the test. "You are pregnant." "We are pregnant. We are going to be parents." "Yes." Julian set the test down carefully, then pulled Emma into his arms. She felt his chest shaking and realized he was crying. "Happy tears?" she asked. "The happiest," he confirmed. "Emma, we are going to have a baby. Are you ready for this?" "I have been ready since the moment I met you." The pregnancy was relatively easy, though Emma complained constantly about swollen ankles and heartburn. Julian was attentive to the point of being overbearing, until Emma finally told him to stop hovering. "I am growing a human, not made of glass," she said. "I know. I just want to help. You can help by getting me ice cream and not commenting on how much I eat. Deal." They prepared the nursery together, painting it a soft yellow that worked for any gender. They had decided not to find out, wanting to be surprised. Julian assembled furniture while Emma washed tiny clothes, both of them marveling at the smallness of everything. "How does a human even fit into these?" Julian asked, holding up a onesie, very carefully. Emma's water broke 3 weeks before her due date, at 2 in the morning. Julian went into efficient mode, grabbing the hospital bag and helping her to the car with calm precision. "You practice this," Emma said between contractions. "I might have run through the scenario a few times." "Dork." "You're dork." Labor was long and difficult, but Julian never left her side. He held her hand, fed her ice chips, and rubbed her back through every contraction. 14 hours after they arrived at the hospital, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby girl. "She is perfect," Julian breathed, holding their daughter with tears streaming down his face. "Emma, look at what we made." Emma was exhausted and overwhelmed and completely in love. Their daughter had dark hair like Julian and Emma's nose, and she was absolutely perfect. "What should we name her?" Emma asked. They had discussed names but never settled on anything definite. But looking at their daughter now, Emma knew exactly what felt right. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Julian looked at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Because I gave you hope when you thought you were not ready. Because you both gave me hope. That love could be right, that family could be this beautiful, that I could be exactly who I am and still be enough." "You have always been more than enough," Julian said, kissing her forehead. "But Hope is perfect." Hope Catherine Sullivan came home 3 days later, and their lives transformed completely. The sleepless nights, the constant feedings, the steep learning curve of figuring out what different cries meant. It was exhausting and wonderful, and everything Emma had not known she wanted. Julian took parental leave, working from home so he could be present for these early months. Emma watched him change diapers and give bottles with the same focused attention he brought to everything, and fell in love with him all over again. "You are a natural at this," she told him one night as he walked Hope around the living room, soothing her back to sleep. "I have a good partner," he replied. "We are figuring it out together." Rachel visited constantly, bringing food and offering to babysit so Emma and Julian could nap. "She is gorgeous," Rachel cooed, holding Hope with practiced ease. "You two made a gorgeous human." "She gets it from Emma," Julian said. "Sap," Emma said, but she was smiling. 6 months into parenthood, they found a rhythm. Emma returned to work part-time, having negotiated a schedule that let her be home more. Julian restructured his role at the company, delegating more to Linda so he could prioritize family time. On Hope's first birthday, they threw a small party in their apartment. Family and close friends crowded into the space, watching Hope demolish a small cake with enthusiastic abandon. "Look at her," Emma said to Julian as Hope smeared frosting in her hair. "She is so happy." "She is loved," Julian said. "She will always know she is loved." Emma leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. 3 years ago, she had been standing in the rain, convinced she needed to be alone. Convinced that love was something she had to prepare for, to be ready for, to somehow deserve. But Julian had shown her that love was not about being ready or perfect or having all the answers. It was about being brave enough to try, honest enough to be vulnerable, and patient enough to let things unfold in their own time. "Thank you for waiting," she said quietly, knowing he would understand. Julian turned to look at her, his eyes warm with everything they had built together. "Thank you for being worth every second of it." 2 years later, Emma found herself pregnant again. This time they were slightly more prepared, though the tiredness still hit her like a freight train. "At least we know what we are doing now," Julian said optimistically. "We absolutely do not," Emma replied, "but we will figure it out." They had a boy this time whom they named James after Julian's father who had passed away before they met. James was different from Hope in every way. Where she had been a calm baby, he was colicky and fussy. Where she had slept through the night early, he woke constantly. "This is harder than I remembered," Emma said through a fog of exhaustion. "We survived, Hope. We will survive James," Julian assured her, though he looked as tired as she felt. Hope, now 3, was fascinated by her baby brother. She wanted to help with everything, which was adorable and occasionally stressful. "Gentle, Hope," Emma reminded her for the 100th time as Hope enthusiastically patted James's head. "I am being gentle, Mama," Hope insisted. They navigated the chaos of two children with humor and grace and a lot of coffee. Julian's company continued to thrive, and Emma took on a leadership role at her clinic, training new therapists. They were busy and tired and happier than ever. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Julian surprised Emma with a weekend away while Rachel and her husband watched the kids. They went to a cabin in the mountains, spending 2 days sleeping in, hiking, and reconnecting. "I miss you sometimes," Emma admitted as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Like I see you every day, but I miss having time that is just us." "I know what you mean," Julian said. "I love our life, love our kids, but I miss being able to have your full attention. We should do this more often. Get away, just the two of us." "I like that idea." They talked late into the night the way they had on that first date, about their dreams for the future, about the kids, about work. But mostly they just enjoyed being together without the constant demands of parenting. "You ever think about that night in the coffee shop?" Julian asked. "All the time. I was so sure I needed to be alone. I am glad you were wrong. I am glad you did not believe me." Julian pulled her closer. "I believed that you thought you were not ready, but I also believed that we were worth waiting for. Turns out I was right." "Arrogant, confident," Emma laughed, kissing him. "I love you, you arrogant, confident, perfect man. I love you too." As the years continued, their family grew and changed. Hope started school, bringing home art projects and new vocabulary. James grew out of his colicky phase and became a cheerful toddler who climbed everything. Julian expanded his company's reach, bringing better medical equipment to hospitals across the country. Emma was promoted to clinic director, overseeing a team of therapists she had trained herself. They bought a house with a big backyard for the kids to play in. They adopted a dog, a golden retriever that Hope named Sunshine. They hosted birthday parties and holiday dinners and regular game nights with friends. They argued occasionally about whose turn it was to do dishes or whether the kids needed another activity, but they always came back to center. Always remembered what they had built together. On Hope's 10th birthday, Emma found herself standing in the backyard watching Julian teach Hope and James how to throw a baseball. The sun was setting, painting everything gold, and she felt overwhelmingly grateful. Rachel came to stand beside her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "You look contemplative." "Just thinking about how different my life could have been," Emma said, accepting a glass. "If I had let fear win, if Julian had not been willing to wait." "But he did wait, and you did say yes, and now you have this beautiful life." "I really do. You deserve it, Em. You both do." That night, after the party ended and the kids were asleep, Emma and Julian collapsed on the couch. "10 years since I met you," Julian said. "Best decade of my life. We have had a lot of big moments in 10 years. Getting married, having kids, building careers. My favorite moments are the small ones, though. Saturday mornings making pancakes, reading bedtime stories, sitting with you after the kids go to sleep. Those are my favorite moments, too." Emma curled into his side, feeling utterly content. This was what she had been afraid of all those years ago. Not love itself, but the vulnerability it required. The risk of letting someone see all of her and trusting they would stay. But Julian had stayed. Through sleepless nights and stressful days, through arguments and apologies, through every high and low. He had kept his promise to wait as long as it took, and then he had kept going. Kept choosing her, kept building their life together, kept loving her with the same certainty he had shown that first night. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. "For what? For seeing me. For waiting, for this whole beautiful life." Julian kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for finally being ready. I will always be ready for this. For you, for us, for our family. Always." "Always," Julian echoed, and Emma knew he meant it. Not just in this moment, but in all the moments to come. through whatever challenges or joys lay ahead, they would face them together. Partners, best friends, the love of each other's lives. Hope wandered out of her bedroom, sleepy-eyed and clutching her favorite stuffed bear. "I cannot sleep." "Come here, sweetheart," Emma said, making room on the couch. Hope climbed between them, fitting perfectly in the space they created. James appeared a moment later, always following his big sister, and Julian scooped him up. They sat together in the quiet living room, their little family all accounted for. This, Emma thought, was everything. Not perfect, not without its struggles, but real and full and overflowing with love. "Tell us the story," Hope requested, yawning. "What story, baby?" Julian asked, though they all knew which one she meant. "How you met Mama." It had become Hope's favorite bedtime story, this tale of her parents meeting in a coffee shop on a rainy night. Emma and Julian exchanged smiles, having told this story 100 times but never tiring of it. "Well," Julian began, "it was raining, and your mama had just made a very brave choice to be honest about what she needed." "And you waited," Hope said, knowing the story by heart. "I did. I waited because I knew she was worth it." "How long did you wait?" James asked, even though he knew this answer too. "As long as it took," Julian and Emma said together. Hope smiled, satisfied, and snuggled deeper into the couch. Within minutes, both kids were asleep, warm and safe between their parents. Emma looked at Julian over their children's heads, seeing her whole world in his eyes. "Worth the wait," he mouthed silently. "Worth everything," she mouthed back. And in that moment, in that perfect, ordinary moment of family togetherness, Emma knew with absolute certainty that this was what happily ever after looked like. Not a fairy tale ending, but a beginning that kept unfolding. A love that had started with patience and grown into something unshakable. A promise made in a coffee shop and kept every single day since. They carried the kids back to bed eventually, tucking them in with gentle kisses. Then, Emma and Julian returned to their own room, ready to end another day in their beautiful, chaotic, love-filled life. "I love you," Emma said as they settled under the covers. "I love you too. Always have, always will." And as Emma drifted off to sleep in the arms of the man who had waited for her, she felt nothing but gratitude, for his patience, for her courage, for the life they had built together. For every moment that had led them here, to this perfect imperfect forever. The rain started again outside, tapping gently against the windows. But inside, everything was warm and safe and exactly as it should be. Exactly as it was always meant to be.